There's private enterprise. There's no private enterprise. Right now, everything is owned to Paro via Yosef. And then there's even an offering to sow the land. Sow the land during famine? No rain. How are they sowing? We're told in the oral Torah, and Rashi brings it, that from the time of the arrival of Yaakov Avinu, something miraculous has happened. The famine has ended. The famine has ended. Why? Because of the coming of Yaakov Avinu to Mitzrayim. The last pasuk of the last parsha, can you see it? Can you find it quickly, please? The Torah says, very interesting words that we usually don't use for abroad, for Chutz La'aretz. The Torah says, Vayechazuba. Vayeshev Yisrael Be'eretz Mitzrayim, they're settling. Vayeshev, settlement. Even though we plan to be there temporarily, but Yisrael now is settling Eretz Mitzrayim, Be'eretz Goshen, Vayachazuba. He seizes onto the land, and then Vayifru, Vayirbu Me'od. Between this and the beginning of the next book, not next parsha, the next sefer is called, of course, Sefer Shemot. And there the Torah states vividly, Vatimalei haaretz otam. I repeat, Vatimalei haaretz otam. The land is filled up with them. Who is them? The plan of action of Yosef. To have a ghetto in the area called Goshen, which is Ramses is part of. Is that what we learned?
It's the
Capital is now failing. The Hebrews are now spreading out north, south, east, and west, apparently. And this is one of the fears of Yaakov when he went down to Mitzrayim. There are times that the Torah can convey a message, an idea, without writing a word. I think maybe, I'm suggesting, that this could be the case at the end of Vayigash. Each and every one of us saw in the printed Tanakh how it's scribed in the Torah. Vayigash ends, and immediately what begins? Parshat Vayechi. Wow. We have never witnessed such a method of writing or scribing the Torah. And this apparently is an instruction from God to Moshe at Sinai, how to scribe the Torah. That there's no revach, no space here. And if it would be satum samech, so you think, we have a space of 9 letters approximately, but that's not the case. If you're a reader of Torah, and I merited to read them at Shabbat Mincha this past Shabbos, and it's not easy for the reader of the Torah to find the beginning of the parsha because there's no space. You can usually get the beginning of a line, or there's a little blank of 9 letters, but here there's no space. Nonetheless, rhetorically we ask ourselves, why is this happening? And if we go according to this understanding, there could be other understandings, but if we go according to this understanding, that darkness has set in amongst the children of Yaakov Avinu. The roots of future assimilation have begun. Living alongside these Gentiles, these Egyptians, who are coarse, vulgar, lack of modesty, the worst culture in the world, that the Torah at Sinai already warns us, don't go back down. Don't go back down. The Rambam brings in the Mishnah Torah the Isur Aseh, a prohibition through a positive commandment that we're not supposed to be going down there. Because this country and this land cultivates the opposite ideas of what God is cultivating for the Jewish people. And you know what? You have to be a magician almost to cultivate a Hebrew nation with the values of God in the most opposite land that you want to bring them. If the Hebrew nation will turn into a nation, and you ask this gentleman sitting next to me, where shall we cultivate them? Where shall they sprout and develop? He's probably going to say, he's not going to say New York or Holland, nor Egypt. He's going to say the land of Israel. Cultivate them in a holy place. But God's plan is not your plan. As Isaiah says, Machshavotay lo machshavotechem. My thoughts are not your thoughts. Derachai lo darkechem. My methods are not your methods. My dear friends, the making of a supernatural entity called the nation of God, which we're beginning to learn about, which is the fulfillment of the covenant of the pieces, Berit ben Abtarim, promised by God to Avram Avinu, is now in a higher gear of making, of development. The brothers are down there. Yosef has a high position. Yaakov has now arrived. And now the Torah shares with us perhaps an idea. It's dark now. When you don't see the white parchment, you don't see the space, it's as if it's dark. Okay? The Galut is metaphorized with Choshech. Do you remember the vision that Yaakov received prior to going down to Mitzrayim? The Torah purposely tells us what time of day it is. Quote, Vayomer Elokim b'marot halayla, in the appearance of nighttime. Because nighttime equals Galut. Galut. Yaakov, darkness equals Galut, exile. And on the one hand, this is bad times. But you know what? Hashem is maneuvering through our decisions, our ancestors' decisions, of what we choose to do rightfully and the mistakes we do wrongfully. The mistakes of the brothers of Yosef, where they later regret. We heard him screaming, and we didn't listen to him screaming. Remember that verse we read 2 weeks ago? That's part of their tshuva. And they're doing tshuva. But right now, Yaakov comes down. And the parsha opens up with Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim shva yisrei shana. And you know what? This is not a book of statistics. So why do we have to know it's 17 years? Question one. Vayehi yemei Yaakov shnei chayav. His total sum of life is sheva shanim ve'arba'im u'mi'at shana, 147 years. That means that's it. Finito. This is the end of his life. So if it's the end of his life, why is the parsha called Vayechi? You could have started up with a different biblical verb. So we raised several questions after reading already verse number 1. And some of our great scholars explain, these are the best years. The best years of Yaakov Avinu. Come on, in downtown Egypt? In Goshen? Give me a break. There's no kosher pizza shop there. They're going to build one. They're going to build one. How could he have such a good life? Doesn't he love the land of Israel? Answer. His life was terrible. You think you have a difficult time in life? Your life is cherry pie with creaming on top compared to what Yaakov went through. Esav hates and wants to kill him. Lavan cheats him 100 times. He now wrestles the ministerial angel of Esav. And then with all that, with 4 wives and 12 children, and then he has the problems with Yosef and his brothers, and he refuses to be comforted for 22 years. He refuses to be comforted. That's the tough life. Now, his last 17 years, that means he arrived to Mitzrayim at the ripe age of 130 according to this calculation, that's correct. And he lives there until 147. What does he see that gives him chayim, a good life? Number one, what does he see amongst his children? All the children are together. There's peace. Okay? There's peace. He can be now comforted for the last 17 years of his life. By the way, 17 years, we can figure out as well, was not long ago. It was long ago. Where did we see 17 years? Yosef's life, until he departed from the scene, Yosef was 17 years old. That means Yaakov enjoyed his special, unique son. Quote, Eile Toldot Yaakov. These are the generations of Yaakov. Next word, Yosef. Yosef is the main child of Yaakov Avinu, isn't he? He enjoyed that child for 17 years. And now there's been a long break. And now he enjoys another 17 years. That's what the Radak, Rabbeinu David ben Kimchi, explains regarding these years. And gentlemen, he sees them, but I must add to you something. Yaakov, I want to ask you a question. How many times have you met with your son Yosef for a piece of pizza or delicatessen? Have you been together on that? What did you say? He's in the capital city next to Paro, and you're in Goshen. You hardly meet. I'm going to talk to Yosef 1 second. Why are you doing this? Yosef, your father finally has arrived. Are you avoiding your father? Say yes. Say yes.
Yes.
Shh. That's the mitzvah of Kibbud Abba, honoring your father. It's apparently in the interest of Yosef not to be too much with his Abba. Abba might be curious. What happened all these years? What really happened? Do you think Yosef has the interest of spilling the beans and revealing to his Abba that he was thrown into a pit by his brothers and sold?
No.
How do you prevent that? He doesn't move. He doesn't call the local Egyptian moving company, move my things from the capital city to be with my father and my brothers. He keeps a low profile, living distant, whatever distance it is. We'll be able to prove this point in the upcoming psukim. Because if Yaakov would hear about this troubled story, I don't know if the Torah would say that his life he had chayim in Mitzrayim. But here it says he had chayim, he had good life in Mitzrayim. That's what it means without writing the word good. So we can understand that his life was good as opposed to what he had in Eretz Yisrael. And you know what? There's some of the Rishonim explain, I think it's also brought down here by the Ramban, Masei Avot Siman Lebanim. What happened to Yaakov, having a good life in Mitzrayim, is going to happen to the children of Israel, the Jewish people, when we go down into the Galut. Okay? Some of you heard of New York City, Los Angeles. Do you know how many Jews are there?
1 million.
And you know how many of them feel they have a good life there? Very good life they feel, they sense. They have synagogues and mikvaot and kosher restaurants and anything and everything, and Jewish mayors maybe sometimes, and politicians and so on and so forth. And we see Masei Avot, Siman Labanim, that just like Yaakov's life and now his children's life will be there for 210 years in Mitzrayim, so too this will hint to the galut that we will be at the hand of the fourth creature, the Roman Empire, okay? Because we ourselves will bring about the destruction of the second temple, just like Yosef and brothers brought about the sale and the bringing about the galut. We brought the sale of Yosef and brought us down to Mitzrayim, and that will be a hint, a parallel to the Roman or Edomite galut, that we ourselves made contracts and covenants and packs with Roman culture and Roman matters, and so on and so forth. And look at Agrippus, the last king of the Jewish people, of the Second Temple, and all the terrible things that happened there. My friends, let's continue learning, and we're going to get to that Rashi that you saw. Pasuk Kaftet, Vayikrevu Yemei Yisrael Lamut. His name is not, rather. And what does it mean? His life is coming towards an end. How does he feel it? My dear friends, if we skip right now to Pasuk Aleph of the next chapter, we meet up with the word that did not appear at all in the Chumash. Find the word that appears for the first time in the Chumash in chapter 48, Pasuk Aleph. Which word? Chole. מה שלומך? אתה בריא או אתה חולה?
I'm not sick.
אני בריא.
אני בריא.
Thank you. We never meet up with the word chole in the Torah. This is the first time it's mentioned. Well, if it's mentioned, we'll get to it in a moment. He senses, Yaakov, that his time is coming. But it's called Yisrael. Yisrael, because maybe some lofty things have to be mentioned, and some of us know, in opposition to Yaakov, which is a lower level, Yisrael is a higher level. And what is he? Who does he call? Vayikra livno liyosef. Why does he have to call him? Because he's not living next door. He's living in the capital city, where the Armona Melucha, where the kingdom or the palace of Paro is. Vayomer lo, in the middle of reading verse 29. He says to his son Yosef, follow the reading in 29. Imna matzati chen beinach. He talks to him with derech eretz. Please. I'm sorry. Who's the father? Yaakov. So why does he talk this way? Because Yosef is a kind of king, majesty. Imna matzati chen beinacha, simna yadcha tachat yorechi. Put your hand under my loin. We've already seen this before. When we're taking A or making A. Now I know it's on his mind. Thank you, Michal. When we're making a Shavua. Very good. When we're making an oath, okay, we take an object of holiness. That's where the Western world, I think, took in their court systems to put a hand on top of a Bible, right? They do it in all European countries or something of that nature.
In England they do.
Okay, in England, but they do that in America, if I'm not mistaken, right? Do you swear to tell the entire truth and nothing but the truth and all that, those words? The area of the Brit Milah. What do you want? Alna, please don't. Tikbareni b'Mitzrayim. Wow. Make an oath that you don't bury me. He feels he's about to die. Don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is not a good place to be buried. What, yes. Verse 30, V'shachavti mavotai. I want to lie down with my... Where are they buried? Hebron. Who? Machpelah. Who's buried there?
Avraham.
And Sarah. Yitzchak and... Yitzchak and Rivka. I want to be buried there. Unesatani mi Mitzrayim, carry me from Mitzrayim, ukvartani bikvuratam. What is the immediate answer? Vayomar anochi e'eseh chidvaracha. Wow. The son is obliged to the father. Vayomer, does he accept the volition of Yosef? I'm going to do it? No, it's not enough. Hishav'ali, swear to me. Vayishavalo, and he swears to him. And then the section culminates with Vayishtachu Yisrael Rosh Hamita. Yisrael bows down to the direction of the head of the bed. Who's at the head of the bed? Yosef is. But also we say at a sick person, the Shekhinah, the divine presence is there. Yaakov is submitting himself before the divine entity. He senses and feels. He's not asking for a social or any matter from his son. He's asking for something which is so fundamental. And that is two things. Aleph, negating the galut, and B, praising the land of Israel. If that's the case, why don't you just rely on the agreement of Yosef? Yosef says, fine, I'm going to do it. No. There must be an oath. So we have to investigate, contemplate. Why is it that an oath must be made? Number one, gentlemen, this is who's present for this oath? Who's present? It is done by Yosef. Who's not present?
The other brothers.
Why not call everyone? Call the entire family together and say, this is my last will and testament, that I want to be buried in Hebron and not buried here. How many years have passed? 17 years. There's a very famous family living in Goshen called the family of Yaakov Avinu. 11 stars. 11 stars are there. Yosef is not far, but he's not there at the same place. And because of this Yaakov Avinu, economically, we understood, as Chazal told us, the famine has ended, people are sowing, and now economic prosperity is coming back to the Egyptian empire. And everyone knows that it has to do with Yaakov Avinu. Now, if Yaakov Avinu, he is so special, and his son is the viceroy, the Mishneh Melech, can you see right now the front page of the Egyptian Daily, the Cairo Daily? Yaakov is asking not to be buried here in Mitzrayim. That's an insult. He, the father of the viceroy, the one that has brought so much prosperity here to the land of Israel, the Egyptian empire has absorbed, has made a shelter, has given them a ghetto, a neighborhood to live in, and now he wants to be buried outside? Wow, that's quite an insult to the Majesty Paro and to the name. Okay? Maybe these people, these Hebrews, are not really faithful to us in the end. Maybe they're lacking a sense of sincerity and faithfulness. What will be the image of the family of Yosef when this becomes public knowledge? What will be the image of all the brothers? The father doesn't want to be buried here. It'll be understood negatively, won't it, by the Egyptian people and so on and so forth. So here we have a problem, a major problem of being asked to be buried abroad is not an act of goodness, sincerity, faithfulness to the Egyptian empire. So first of all, the galut has to be negated. I know Brooklyn is a nice place. I know there are a lot of good synagogues and shtiblach, but it's not home. Like Rabbi Gon often says, educationally, the galut is a motel. It is a temporary place of existence. So first of all, in spite of the economic prosperity going on in Egypt, which will happen later on in all the galuyot, we have to know why Yaakov does not want to be buried here. Because galut is not our home. We must show sincerity and faithfulness to the land of God. Okay? To the land of God. This has to be a fundamental principle. And this is what Yaakov is telling. I can't be buried in Mitzrayim. Alna. He's negating the galut. Now, my dear friends, when you write a last will and testimony, okay, you know how there are times that before parents pass away, there are a lot of troubles in understanding the last will. Is he not cheated out? Is he given fair? And so on. For last will and testimony, a lot of people go through a lot of legal matters and battles to make sure things are clear, things are not misunderstood. Well, Yosef, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as his level of righteousness, what score would you give him?
Joseph? 10.
10. He's superstar, right? He's great. What? Yosef HaTzadik. Not many people get that name throughout Jewish history, Yosef HaTzadik. So if that's the case, why cause him to take an oath in God's name? Certainly he's trustworthy. Certainly he is faithful. But the answer is Yosef is not running the show. Yosef is not running the show. Maybe he might be vetoed, overrun by Paro. Paro would certainly want to have and build a mummy and a tomb for Yaakov, that this is the guy that brought us economic prosperity, and so on and so forth. My dear friends, Yaakov Avinu has Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, and he has prophecy as well. He knows that this is a very tricky and subtle matter. If he doesn't cause his son to swear, there's going to be a problem. That leads us, when the actual request is made, as you opened up and did this great work on Rashi, chapter 50, verse 6. Some of you wrote beautiful Rashi. Okay. When after Yaakov passes away, the beginning of chapter 50, and Yosef cries on his father, and then Yosef commands the doctors to do embalming. You see what I'm reading? In chapter 50, verse 2 and 3. And 40 days of embalming are done, and the Egyptian public, what do? They cry. Not just mourn, they cry. 70 days of crying. That means everyone understood what Yaakov did to save the empire of Egypt. His actual arrival to Egypt brought about the end, right, of the famine and the beginning of great years. And now it's time for Yosef to talk tough. In Pasuk Dalet, please follow, in verse 4. Vaya'avru yemei v'chito, the days of crying passed. Try to find the Hebrew, and I'll translate for you in English so you learn more Hebrew. Chapter 50, verse 4. Vayidaber Yosef el beit paro lemor. He's speaking. Dibur, we said, is tough speaking. And he's talking now to the parliament members, his ministers, the house of Paro, his advisors. If I found favor in your eyes, dabruna, you, go ahead and speak, you advisors. Be'oznei Paro lemor. I want you to speak into the ears that this message gets across. What is the message? Verse 5. Avi, my dad, hishbi'ani lemor. He caused me to swear. Notice what he says in the oath. Hinei anochi met. Behold, I'm about to be dying. B'kivri asher kariti li. Oh, interesting. This was not told to Yosef. Yosef adds, he's very sharp. I have a burial site that I dug for myself. Do you notice that Yosef is changing the language? He's very keen here. What does he not say to Paro's administrative leaders? Remember, there were two messages. Aleph, the negation of the galut, and the matter that I must be buried in the tomb of my fathers. He does not mention here the negation of the galut. You don't talk about the bad things in front of the king of Egypt. You only mention good things. But he here withholds that information. And he adds, I already dug, I prepared a burial site for myself in the land of Canaan. Shama, there, tikbareni, that's what I was sworn to be done. There bury me. Ve'ata, and now, this is the message to be delivered. And apparently Yosef is like around the dead. He's not Yosef is by Goshen right now. And Paro is in the capital city. Ve'ata, and now Elena, please let me go up. Ve'ekberat avi, and let me bury my dad. Ve'ashuva, and I will return. This is the request to be buried, to bury his father in his burial place that he already buried, without talking about the negation of the galut. And he mentions, of course, my father swore me. What is the response of Paro? Vayomer Paro, Ale, go up. Ukfor et avicha, and bury your dad. And now we're going to ask about the two last words of this pasuk. Ka'asher hishbi'echa. Literal translation.
No, like you swore.
Like he swore you. Hishbi'acha. He swore you. What's the point of... Everyone's asking the question, what's the point of Paro's reply? Okay, do it just like he caused you to swear. Meaning, had he not caused you to swear? I will not permit it. It's an insult to us. What's so important about swearing? It's a matter. I'm not a believer too much in one God. You can violate your swearing and oath. What's the matter? What, the Torah says not to? What do I care? So, don't keep your oath. There's something behind here. And this is the wonderful Rashi. Some of you wrote beautifully. Let's see the Rashi. Rashi brings, and this idea, it all comes from a Gemara. At the end of the Rashi was quoted. From which tractate? Mesechet what? Sota. What page? And which side? Bet. Side 2. That was the source. Rashi brings this Gemara, what Chazal say. Why? And remember, when we're reading Rashi, often we will see Rashi does not bring the question. Rather, Rashi begins with an answer, or in this case, maybe an inference. But it's obvious the inference is that why write the word? Why say the word kasher ishbiyecha? Why does Paro have to say, just like he swore you? Answer. V'im lo b'shvil hashvua. Had it not been because of the shavua, lo hayiti menichacha. I would not. What does lahaniach mean? I would not leave you. Lahaniach. Tazovati, taniach oti. Leave me alone. Taniach. There's lahaniach to leave. There's lahaniach to place. Lahaniach tefillin. To let it be. Leave me alone. I would not leave you alone. I would not allow you. Why? It's an insult not to have this great person that brought us prosperity and his family here, not to be buried in Mitzrayim. We want it. We'll make him a national mummy or something like that. Aval, however, so why doesn't he say violate the Shua? Yarei Lomar, Paro is fearful of saying, quote, Avor ala Shua. Violate, Avera, violate the oath. Why not? Shelo Yomar, because if he demands Yosef to violate the Shvuah, Yosef has a reply back to him. Im Kain, yes, you want me to violate the Shvuah? Evor ala Shvuah shenishbati lecha. Then you know what? I'm going to violate an oath that I swore to you. What did you cause me to swear when you found out that I'm so talented? Shelo agale al lashon hakodesh. You swore me not to tell everyone that I know the Hebrew language. Shani makir odef al shivim lashon. There are 70 nations in the world. Paro knows 70 languages, but Yosef knows even another language that Paro does not know. And I know one more than you know. Well, that means like I'm so wise, so intelligent, so special. Maybe I should even be the Paro, the next Paro. You caused me to swear. Don't tell the world that you know 71 languages. Okay? Shani makir odef. I know in addition, al shivim lashon, vata eincha makir, but you don't know the Hebrew language. Kideita, as it is in Mesechet Sota. My dear friends, Yaakov Avinu had this wisdom, this understanding that it's not an easy request. To Yosef, negate the galut. It's not where we're supposed to be. I have to be buried elsewhere. Not in the galut, but in the land of God. By the way, when we learned Chayei Sarah, and we learned about the purchase of Hebron by Avram Avinu, to bury Sarah, we brought the words of Chazal that the premier place for burial in the land of Israel is indeed Hebron. That is the premier place. With all due respect to Yerushalayim and the holy cities, Hebron, as the Zohar states, is the entrance, the opening to Gan Eden. And therefore the ideal place of burial is specifically Hebron. Okay? Today, we have a very small cemetery, okay, in Hebron, on the top tier of the town, next to Admot Yishai, next to, right, Yishai and Ruth are supposedly buried there on the top part of the hill of Hebron. 100 meters away is a small cemetery where many of the Jews that were butchered by Arabs in the 1929 riots, okay, and many were killed from the Slobodka Yeshiva in Hebron, and other townspeople, they're buried there. Very little place, but that's the so-called the only cemetery that we have in the city of Hebron. There's another one in Kiryat Arba, but in Hebron proper, that is the one. So in any event, here we see the wisdom that, wow, he causes his son, Yaakov causes his son to swear, not because he doesn't trust him, he trusts him, but he foresees politically problems with the king of Egypt. He's not going to allow him to go. Swearing? Apparently Yaakov knew that Yosef had taken an oath as well, vis-a-vis Paro, that he won't violate his shvuah. You don't want me to violate the shvuah, Beseder? I can't violate the shvuah of my father. I took a shvuah to my father. I took an oath to my father. I can't violate it either. I must keep it. What does Paro say? Go up and bury him, kasher hishbiyacha, just like your father swore to you. Had it not been that oath, he would have vetoed this idea. Any questions or comments? Yes, Shushan.
Why did they wait so long to bury him? 70 days of mourning. Why didn't they, when he died, get him on a boat, chick-chack, let's go to Hebron?
So all the boats were on strike that day. That's number one. But I think the simple answer here is Yaakov is a national image of Egyptian culture. Not that he represents Egyptian, but he's a national hero. And there's a need for an outlet in Egyptian culture, in the nation, to give their respect, to pay their respects to this man, even though he's a Hebrew, because they see him as a representative of God to save the Egyptian economy. So they give him respect. So, when you're Rome, you do as in Rome is, right? Here, apparently Egyptian custom is Aleph, embalming and crying for national leader 70 days. So he allows to do it. Right now, there's no problem of lack of respect to the dead body, because apparently all these spices in the embalming process, what effect is it having on the body? It's preserving the body, preventing it from rotting or decay, isn't it? So apparently there's one of the reasons why in Torah law we act out of respect of the one that passed away, to bring him as soon as we can for burial, is the respect of the dead body. We don't want it to rot. It's not kavod for the mate. It's not honor for the mate. And therefore, even in Yerushalayim, maybe some of you know, there's a minhag in Yerushalayim that if someone passes away afternoon or evening, we don't lodge overnight the dead. We have it all weird hours of the night. Are you aware of this? In Yerushalayim, we bring to burial even in the middle of the night because of the holiness. It's a minhag. It's not a halacha and shulchan aruch, but it's a practice that's practiced here in Yerushalayim. Lo lehalin et hamet, not to leave overnight the dead, but rather to bring him to burial. Okay, so that's why holiness and also respect out of the body, the dead body. So here I think it's giving respect to the Egyptian people, letting them express their grief, their mourning, their sorrowness. And then, wow, when they do leave, he gets a royal. Well, let's just skip and find out how it happens. Who leaves? Number one, in verse Chet, let's just continue. Freddie, you're asking this question. V'chol Beit Yosef, the entire house of Yosef, the kids, the grandkids, v'echav, all the brothers, uveit aviv, they all go. Rak tapam v'tzonim v'krom, just the little babies, The sheep and cattle are left in Eretz Goshen. Who else goes? Vayalimo, okay? Gam rechev gam parashim, horse riders, chariots. Vayamachaneh, the camp of burial is kaved. Not only is it heavy with a lot of population, kaved me'od. This is a national service. It's a national entourage escorting Yaakov from Mitzrayim up to Hebron. Okay? And when they're traveling, they travel even, gentlemen, on which side? When you read it, look at this. Let's go ahead. Verse 10. Vayavo ad Gor. I didn't expect to do this, but let's read it now. They go to a place which is called Goren Ha'atad. Atad is a type of, what is it called? Is a type of vegetative matter that's thorny. What do they explain here as atad in your English? They don't translate it. There's a goren atad. What? They're talking here, the Midrash says, that the kings of Canaan and even the princes of Ishmael, that they came to war, but once they saw the keter, the crown of Yosef on top of his coffin, the Aron of Yaakov, okay? They saw the keter of Yosef. Wow. A royal burial. Yosef's crown on the coffin, or the Aron HaMeit of Yaakov Avinu. Wow. Everyone came then and put their crowns on top of it. So that's Goren Atad, according to, usually Atad is a type of a bush with that is thorny, a thorny bush. But here the Midrash says this attracted international attention. And how did they travel? Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayar Yoshev Aretz HaKnei et Ha'avel B'Goren Atad Vayamru, all the nations, Asher Be'var Yarden. Apparently they traveled on the east side of the Jordan River. There's a way to understand it, if I'm not mistaken. And then they bring him into Hebron, and then Yosef goes back down. So apparently, there was something gigantic, a gigantic funeral that was made here for this. Okay? So we see that's a national service. Let's go back to the beginning of our Parsha. You can...